Hey guys, we're back with the Liliad, and in case you don't remember, we left off where Anon and Lily were kind of planning on meeting up, but they realized Lily's parents weren't really gonna be leaving the house, so they're kind of planning a way to get around that with some trickery. Anyways, here's part two.
She was a good girl, not one for lying, so I knew her parents would believe anything she said. I told her to tell them she was going to a sleepover with her school friends. Her father was busy enough to not check, and her mother's Spanish was shit, so it might just be enough. And they went for it. Meeting at mine was a no, so we decided to meet at the park just outside their community. It was decent, no homeless people, and barely any AIDS. She came in a skirt, and my near constant erection grew 3 times its normal size when I saw her. Lily looked incredible. Like the first time I saw her in that way, she was wearing a bra, as usual. I figured in order to make her breasts look slightly larger, her skirt was dangerously short, so that with each step I wonder if there was a chance of seeing her panties. All in all, she was everything I desired. Everything. We walked hand in hand for the first time, her small digits clasped tightly around mine, actually parading around like a couple, ignoring the danger of someone who knew either of us seeing us, wandering deeper into a more secluded area of the park. I don't know what exactly she was planning, but I knew what I was, and after all, we hadn't ever been able to keep our hands off of each other before, so I was sure this would be no different. There was no one on the path. There were ample bushes and the like to prevent an easy vantage point. We ducked off the path and found a clearing that seemed shaped just for us, Lily trailing slightly behind, my hand unable to let hers go. We lay down simultaneously, me pulling her next to me, lying on our hips and facing one another as I began to press my face incessantly into hers, tongue tasting in mild sweetness, her own smaller mouth twisting around mine, kissing me hard, deep, almost frantically. The position was uncomfortable, of course, and after a few moments I rolled onto my back with Lily coming atop me, one leg over my torso, entire body pressed onto mine as we continued to kiss, my hands up and down her back, on her head, brushing her cheek, touching everywhere, or at least everywhere, safe. After a few more moments I rolled over onto her, supporting myself above her, not quite fully atop her, legs still to the side. We kissed like that now, her hands on my cheeks, daintier kissing, more loving, less animalistic. Then I shifted so I was fully on top of her. Her legs spread as my hips went on top of hers in line. My erection pressed into her abdomen without me even bothering to try and hide it. I pressed myself into her, feeling another human against my dick for the first time. Her kisses faltering, stopping, and both of us freezing at that moment. The rushing sound in my ears was strange. Perhaps the wind? Perhaps something past excitement. I looked down at the pushing against her, pressing her skirt further between her legs. I have a condom. It was approximately that smooth, i.e. not smooth at all. She looked at me strangely for a moment. I haven't had my period yet. Oh, Jesus Christ. How old was this girl again? And was that permission? What now? Did I just grab her breasts and go to town? Or something else? Or... My mind was having a hard time getting around it, but my cock had a mind of its own. I reached down to her sides beneath her skirt, feeling her thighs for the first time as I reached to her panties and tugged at them, Lily lifting her hips slightly to let them slide down before she sat up a little to pull them down while I sat up and looked down at her. Now, that was permission, right? It had to be. She lay back down and flipped up her skirt. I immediately spaghetti everywhere. It was my first in-person pussy, and it did not let me down. I am unsure what else to say about it, except that it was just as every other part of Lily was perfect. She was perfect there as well. And no, there was not any hair. If I had been better at sex, maybe I would have done more, but as it is, I just let out a shuddering gasp and told her she was beautiful. Being a gentleman, and I asked if she was sure, and I scrabbled at my belt, trying to get off every switch as quickly as possible. Her eyes may have widened when my boner sprang into view. Who knows? I was overwhelmed, too overwhelmed to pay much attention past this moment. I moved downwards again, on top of her, pressing myself between her legs. I could feel the head of my penis pressed into something warm and soft, and that was good enough for me. I let out another groan as I pushed ever so gently against her. Surprise, sex doesn't quite work like that, especially when you're dealing with some unripe goods. I slipped up and out of her on that first push. I could feel my cock pushing before popping upwards, smearing sticky liquid on her as I pulled back in for another go. I reached my hand down to hold myself against her before looking at Lily. My darling, my everything, all I wanted in that moment. Are you okay? Yeah, she breathed. Her chest was rising and falling. Perhaps losing her virginity in a park to a guy 5 years older than her hadn't been her plan, but here we were. I positioned. This time I felt her labia spread around me, tightly squeezing the tip of my cock. This had to be right. I went even slower, pushing so gently, feeling a slight give, that incredibly tight, hot grip fighting against my entry into her. Felt like my cock was going to break in half before it finally popped out again, this time bending downwards to press lengthwise almost into the ground. This was not right, and I couldn't really handle much more. Lily was taking deeper breaths, her face red. I can't really, I muttered, looking downwards, our bodies blocking us and finding myself unwilling to pull back for better luck. I just wanted to feel her against me. I pulled back and pressed against her, not bothering to position. Feeling the underside of my penis slide wetly up her pussy, I pressed against her, a slight give in the puffy flesh down there, providing me with even more stimulation. I rocked against her several more times. Who am I kidding? Probably months more, before I groaned, this time much more urgently. Leaning my body upwards and away from her, I came, shooting white streaks up onto her skirt, leaving dark stains that in the moment didn't seem to matter. The sheer amount of distance was nothing like my solo experiences, and I was shocked at first before seeing her mild revulsion at the one shot that landed on her collarbone. Sorry. I tried to wipe it up, using my own shirt, spreading it around, getting jizz essentially everywhere. I backed off of her, knees shaking. Oh my god, Lily. Then I came back to her, on top of her, not caring about the spreading stains on both of our clothes now as I kiss her, pulling back to say, I love you. Getting back to her house was tricky, but we managed to make it without making it too obvious to anyone that I just ejaculated all over her outfit. We had kissed more, lain together, whispered that we loved one another and would do anything for each other before finally deciding it had been long enough. She had always planned on telling her parents the sleepover was canceled. I guess staying over at mine was never an option. I sat in my room after all was said and done. I'd just gone from debating whether or not I like a 12-year-old made me a pedo to coming on one within the span of 8 months. Holy hell. And I knew one thing. That time didn't count, and it definitely wasn't very much fun for her. There would be a second time, way better for her, and this time, leaving neither of us as virgins. But plans are all well and good until time comes to an end. Soon, it was time for me to go. We weren't talking online nearly as much, which I obsessed over, but when we did, she seemed to mostly wonder if I had actually enjoyed my time with her, as it wasn't real sex. Apparently, without full-on penetration, she didn't think the guy could like it. I guess her online education included plenty of porn, or she was just smart. I assured her I loved it, and nothing would change that. She asked if we could do it again, but this time somewhere nicer. I promised her we would, and this time wherever she wanted. Other than that, we talked about normal things, missing one another, how we'd stay in touch, whether or not Zelda has a goddamn victim complex, just everyday stuff. When I knew I was getting on a plane the next day, the regrets kicked in. I could have snuck into her house, could have done a number of any things. This was it. It was over. Fuck. She was feeling it too. As evidence in our anguished IMs, Lily was afraid about me forgetting her, not caring about her, going back to my nice life and leaving her behind, the little kid as she actually referred to herself. I told her there was no way. I said she was mine, my everything, my first for all we had done together. I could never move past her. I'd wait as long as it took us to see each other again. On the way to the airport, Lily cried brokenheartedly, not bothering to hide it. Her parents commented that we were good pals, and I said yes, telling Lily to cheer up that we'd see each other again. The sheer craziness of looking a parent in the eye when you know you just washed their semen off their daughter's clothing is hard to explain. I got on the plane. I cried too, tears that were very different from the last time. Now I was in love and aching for Lily. My Lily. The fact that she turned me into a pedophile was conveniently left out by my subconscious, which was kind of it. Getting on the plane was so difficult. It felt like a nightmare when I landed back in the States, back to my family, back to my normal basement-filled existence with only my video games and online friends for company. Talking to Lily was great, and I did like it and looked forward to it, but the image of being on top of her, or her lips on mine, made typing on a keyboard feel stupid. My masturbatory fantasies were literally solely focused around that encounter in the park. Sometimes I changed it up by just shacking off to the thought of us kissing. Sometimes I dared to imagine the future. Basically, my penis ended up being sore for days by the time I was done with it. I had a real girl, and she lived down the globe. It wasn't fair, but it was also exciting. I loved the thought and could feel myself going full pedo, though I preferred to think of it as going full Lily. I tried to not have all of our conversations revolve around sex, but I did remind her over and over that I loved her and that I wanted to kiss her more. She said much the same, sometimes adding that she wondered what others would think if they knew she had a cute boyfriend who was in high school. I attempted not to freak out and tell her I'd die if she told anyone, but she did in fact use the word cute to describe me. After seeing my O face, the only person to ever see it, it made me wonder if maybe I could actually be desirable or attractive, but fuck it, I was attractive to her, and no one else mattered. After several weeks, I asked if she was okay, and it was what we had done at the park. I said I was sorry if I had forced her. She just went with the same line. She was disappointed we didn't get to really do it. It had been enough for me, as detailed before, but she had hoped to deliver more. I'm too small. I remember her saying that, as it mirrored her statement about being too short to kiss. I assured her she wasn't, that I just didn't know what I was doing, and one day maybe we could try again. She said she hoped so, and that she was enough to have me jacking off like a maniac yet again. She was turning 13 in a bit over a month. I was happy about this, as it was 1 year closer to being an acceptable age, even if it was still horribly young, and I thought about it. Thought about me, acne, braces at 13. Yet 1 year closer was 1 year closer. A 5 year difference meant literally nothing by the time she was 18, 16. I tried to push the definition, wondering where the line would be. Trying to shop for your girlfriend who exists in a culture you don't get, in an age you don't entirely get, is hard. I looked around for a while before settling on getting flowers delivered for her from an anonymous friend. And oh boy, did that go over well. I was afraid it was too mature or her parents would catch on, but the night she told me she was overjoyed and her parents assumed it was a boy from school with a crush. It was perfect and started a new tradition that will be mentioned in the future. We never talked about her body or mine, never got into having cyber. That seemed sort of like perverting horror, more than I had already done. And plus, who knew if she was ready to delete logs or hide her computer activities. Best play it kind of, but not really safe. Her birthday was the precursor before Christmas, and I decided to not do anything big for that, just maybe a picture of me or an emotional chat or something. However, she got to me first. Guess what I asked for Christmas? I did not guess, as my first thought was a doll or an iPod. Of course, when you come from decently wealthy stock, as her dad was, gifts tend to be a bit big. I want to go back to America for a week. Sproing, my pants flew across the room from the power of my erection. I'd waited a half a year, and I figured I had another half left before I'd see her again. Suddenly, there was potential for soon. Really soon. She hadn't been back to America since they moved away, and the request made sense. They used to live in our city. A big one. Don't ask. And thus it made sense that they'd come back to the city if they were going to see their old friends or places. I was overjoyed, especially when she said her dad had bought tickets for the first week of January. I started taking care of personal hygiene and stopped wearing sweatpants and began lifting like a champ. None of that really happened, to prepare for her arrival. This was going to be it. I was going to open the year, before I turned 18, by losing my virginity. I was going to do it. I was. Power of positive thinking aside, I was just excited to have her back again. Really, our emotional bond had hardly changed. We talked all the time. We were just missing everything physical, from holding hands to hugging to kissing to the beyond. Or maybe I was just missing it. Who knows? December crawled by. I finished my second to last semester of high school, got accepted to a decent college for business, basically made sure I did not bring shame to my family while I did everything to create a scenario in which my family would be more ashamed of me than one would think possible. I am not sure that sentence worked, but you know what I mean. Christmas was coming, not that I cared. Each day was like an eternity, and I looked forward to logging onto the computer in the evening just to get in some talking before I went to sleep, praying the next day would come sooner. Then one day she stopped signing on. A few days off here and there made sense, but in the middle of December she was just gone. Never online, not invisible or anything else, just gone. My heart sank when I saw that, immediately traveling down to the worst possible solution, assuming she had found a new guy or had told on me or that it was over. I couldn't handle it being over. We signed off our chats with "I love you" and or "I miss you." How could it end so unceremoniously? A week passed. No Lily. Christmas Day was just me sitting under a massive tree with a huge pit of anxiety in my stomach. 2 weeks had passed now. No Lily. I'd been living the dream, and it was time to come back to Earth. I tried to find it in myself to accept that. We were supposed to meet in my home city. We were supposed to take one more step in our relationship together. I was supposed to at least be able to kiss her one more time. Masturbation came to a near halt as each time I fantasized about that one early evening in the park, all I could see was her face, her smile, and then it vanishing, the way she had vanished, suddenly leaving me alone. The first week of January, it had now been 3 weeks since I'd spoken to her, the longest we'd gone in years. I was devastated, thinking about going to college, even thinking about going to my classes in high school. It all felt so pointless. My parents noticed something wrong, and I admitted it had to do with a girl. They told me that young love was always like this, like it was the end of the world. But this was more than that. This wasn't just an immature relationship. She was my everything. As I write this, I can feel my chest tightening up. That was the furthest I've fallen, the darkest I've allowed my mind to go. Was it codependency or sick or something else? Maybe. I needed her. I needed Lily. I had thought about skimming over this part. Fortunately, I know you guys all know the pain of having something ripped away from you, whether or not you ever really had it in the first place. I knew she was supposedly in our city in early January. As I woke up each morning, I wondered where she was, who she was with, and what she was doing. I wonder if she even missed me. It was stupid to wonder, stupid to consider that a lovely girl would. I was in the midst of such a downward spiral when my mother told me that some Spanish person was on the phone for me. I assumed immediately, trying to keep my heart from leaping, it did. Trying to keep myself from sprinting to the phone, I did. Trying to keep my voice from quavering as I said, hola. It quavered like WT Snacks when he sees cheese pizza. Alright, my Spanish is going to be shit and cringy. Hola, puedos ir or to habitación, maybe? I don't know, habitación? I don't know. Yeah, don't make fun of me, at least I tried. I knew that voice. I went to my room. In my room, we switched to English. Thanks, Moot, as I had reached the limit of my physical ability the moment I said hola. I guess the summer down there hadn't actually improved the Espanol at all. It's me. It was Lily. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't decide what to say before finally settling on, where have you been? I knew girls don't like desperate guys, and I tried to keep it together, but what the hell? What she'd done was bullshit. Our computer broke. That made sense, sort of. Why didn't you fix it? My dad got a new one for Christmas, but I don't know how to put AOL on it. To this day, I blame Mac OS X and its coolness for almost ending my life. Are you here? Are you in America? My voice sounded like I was on the verge of crying. I cleared my throat and tried to blink away the mist in my eyes. Yeah, we got here last night. We're staying at the large hotel. A long pause. I had no idea what to say. My day had suddenly gone from the worst of my life to the best yet, or maybe the second best, and I hardly knew what was next. I missed you so much. I love you. She interrupted me, which was probably a good thing before I went full beta on her once again. When can I see you? My first response was I'd sprint to her hotel room in the next 5 minutes, but tried to play it slightly cooler. I'm sure our dads have a dinner or something. Try and find it out. She hung up and was off. I clung to the phone for dear life, snarling and hissing at my mother when she tried to take it from me, eventually biting her hand to show her who the alpha was. It rang again, after ages and ages of waiting. They had one tomorrow night, but I got him to change it to tonight. I laughed. Lily's ability to manipulate her father was always outstanding, and it seemed like this time was no different. I told him I'm meeting a friend tomorrow night, but I wanted to see you guys. Perfect. In several different ways. She was definitely not meeting a friend the next day, and I would be seeing her tonight, assuming that my parents were fine with the switch, which they had to be due to them being window dressing for this story / my life. Dinner came. She was wearing a black dress with a wide neckline, one that showed off her collarbone and the upper part of her chest, no cleavage popping despite breasts clearly being shoved upwards by a bra that was clearly a feat of engineering. She had on slight heels, just an inch perhaps, and looked even better than the last time I saw her. Gorgeous. Perfect. Everything I wanted in one human form. Lily wore a white headband holding back her black hair away from her face, a face that shone brightly as she turned and smiled at me. Hey. We hugged awkwardly. My erection said hello within milliseconds, and then we all sat down for a meal together. I tried to talk and not stare at Lily, but she looked so good. How could everyone not see it? My counterpart, a fellow senior in high school now, an expert bitch like most senior girls, ignored me. I seriously considered going to the bathroom with her, or playing footsie under the table, or just running out front with her hand in mine until we found a place we could be alone. Really though, the bathroom plan was halfway real in my mind. Quick kisses in the hallway. Simple enough, right? But how to get her to come with? These thoughts took up most of dinner, except when I chimed in to talk business with the guys. Other than that, I looked my usual strange, closed-off, socially maladjusted self. Then the planning went into full effect. I was going to get alone time with Lily, and I was going to get it soon. She had an excuse for the following night, and I was going to take advantage of it. We spoke on the phone again that evening. Going to my home was not possible. Going to her hotel room wasn't either. Unlike parks and exotic foreign lands, we would definitely be caught by a group of betards and raped to death if we attempted anything out in the open. So it was time to bust out Daddy's credit card, or just a pile of cash, or use the credit card to get a pile of cash. School vacation was still on. Lily had plans for approximately 9 a.m. until 7 p.m. was when she was supposedly meeting with her friends. We planned it together. After I told her what I was thinking, I paid for the hotel room, a nice one, though not too nice. I sat back in my home while she did whatever she did with her family. I resisted the urge to masturbate. I wondered if this was going to happen or if a bear was just going to break down the door and eat me. I wondered for hours, tossing and turning before she called me. It was on. I told her the location. We both took taxis, with me arriving just slightly before her, trying to not look incredibly suspicious as I moseyed past the front desk looking incredibly suspicious. She probably did the same. I was sitting in the room wearing nice clothes, a polo shirt and jeans, when I heard a light knock. I opened the door and she jumped into my arms. I staggered backwards and closed the door, locking it, wondering. No need to wonder. This was about to happen. Now, despite all my research on sex, i.e. all the porn I watched, I was not feeling very confident in my ability to perform oral. This was, in all seriousness, the number one concern in my mind as we kissed one another, held one another, fell backwards onto the bed. I am not sure what she was wearing, to be honest. That became a very small matter, all things considered. Soon, her top was off, revealing the juvenile bra beneath. The first time I'd actually seen her like that. I kissed her firmly, pulling her on top of me, maneuvering her body over mine, marveling in her litheness, her beauty, her everything. We pulled away from one another with an almost audible pop, both of us gasping, faces wet and messy, eyes shining, her hair already a mess from me running my hands through it. I need to call my mom. This was almost as much as the period comment, causing me to throb in my pants as she moved to the bedstand, pulling a scrap of paper from her jeans and dialing, informing her mother she had arrived safely. She hung up and I pulled her back to me, onto my lap as I sat with my back up against the backboard, Lily facing me, almost like that first time we had kissed. I could see her breasts pushing into the bra just inches away from me. I took a long look, not afraid to let her see me enjoy her body, before shifting my eyes back to her face and smiling. I love you. I miss you so much. She grinned. Do you want me to take it off? Honestly, each thing she said made me want to blow a load in my pants, but instead I took a breath and nodded. She seemed to take her goddamn sweet time with it, unsnapping, pulling it forward, letting the patches of fabric hang on her breast for interminable seconds before letting it fall off. My first in-person boobs. They did not disappoint at all. Small, just handfuls, I would say, topped with soft pink nipples. My mouth was definitely dropped open as I looked at them, and she watched with obvious delight. You're gorgeous, I breathed out without even thinking, voice full of lustful desire. My hand came up practically on its own, cupping underneath one youthful breast, feeling its slight give, the taut, warm flesh beneath my hand. Again, enough to make me come 100 times over. I leaned in and kissed her, one hand on her boob, the other behind her back, holding her close to me, our mouths opening, coming into one another, kissing like old pros now, like two people fully in love. Obviously, at this point, her age didn't matter. Nothing mattered. All that mattered was her. Her nipple didn't harden. I do remember that quite specifically. I wonder if I fucked up? No matter. It remained soft, pliable, and I rubbed my palm over it moments before Lily grimaced and shook her head. This was enough to make me move both hands to her back, smiling apologetically. She backed off of me, pulling down her tight jeans with mild difficulty, revealing panties with some sort of silly pattern, before getting back onto the bed with me, where I had taken off my own shirt to reveal my oh-so-beautifully skinny torso. We kept kissing. I was trying desperately to take it slow. I knew where this was heading, and I wanted to do it right, and do it all the way. The kissing was almost, honestly, enough. If I forgot the sensation of my dick against her, then I was able to imagine that I could be satisfied with just kissing. Seriously, have I said about the kissing enough yet? Let me know. We rolled over so I was atop of her, her hands slightly pushed against my chest as I bore down on her, mouth nuzzling, probing, tonguing against her own. Finally, I pulled back and away from her. I had Lily here, in bed, in her underwear, nothing to interrupt us. I sat back and took off my own pants, the massive tent of my erection. I'm like 16 inches, you guys. As obvious as anything. I have no idea how to explain this. She had to know what it meant, or hopefully she did. I moved her legs, both of us still with our underwear on, rocked against her, feeling my erection press into the soft flesh between her legs, her stomach shuddering as she took deep breaths, breasts expanding upwards slightly each time. I asked for permission. Can we try? I'm not sure if this is exactly what I said, but it was something like that. Then it was her turn. I love you, Anon. I love you. Seemed like permission. I moved backwards and pulled my underwear off, now fully naked with a girl for the first time. It's too big. She pulled her mouth to the side as she took her panties off, and then laying back against the headboard, head propped up by pillows. We can go slow. It's okay. We don't have to. I started to back off mentally before trying. I wanted to have the right expectations. Maybe it wouldn't work. Maybe she couldn't. Maybe I was actually too big, though that seemed like such a porn thing to say. I moved up between her legs, dick bobbing between my own as I lay on top of her. First, we kissed some more, feeling our naked bodies against one another for the first time. Her kisses were slightly more hesitant, kind of nervous, or perhaps I was just projecting my own insecurities onto her. I could feel my penis, slightly wet already, resting on top of her folds. My shaft was lengthwise against her labia, just moving gently up and down, head hovering below her belly button. Finally, I propped myself up onto one hand, raising my torso so we met at the hips only. Pulling back, I reached a hand down to try and reposition myself. This time, I noticed she had a tiny bit of fuzz on her pussy, just enough to make me feel slightly less pedo, but not much. Should I have worried about her period? Definitely yes. Did I? Nope.